Have you ever watched her let you go so calmly that it felt like she didn't even care if it destroyed you? No yelling, no chasing, no "we need to talk" at midnight. Just a quiet decision, delivered like she'd been holding it for a long time. And what messes with you isn't the breakup itself, it's the absence of a fight. Because a fight would mean she still had something left to lose. A fight would mean you could still reach her. Here's the disturbing truth. When a woman lets you go without a fight, it usually means the fighting already happened, just not in front of you. She didn't arrive at that calm in one afternoon. She arrived there after months of private detachment, private grief, private acceptance. You didn't watch love die. You watched effort leave the building. Reason 1. She was already gone inside, long before her body followed. The breakup happened internally first. She stayed physically present while emotionally detaching in stages. It starts with a small cooling you can explain away. She laughs, but it's thin. She listens, but she doesn't lean in. She kisses you, but it's like a routine she's performing for the relationship, not for you. You tell yourself she's stressed. You tell yourself it'll pass. But her warmth isn't fading because life is busy. It's fading because something in her stopped feeling safe with you. And safe here doesn't mean you were abusive. It means she stopped believing she could reach you. She stopped believing she could be honest without it turning into an argument. She stopped believing her needs would be met without her begging. When that belief cracks, she stops imagining a future. And once the future dies in her head, the present becomes easy to leave. That's why she can look composed at the end. She's been leaving in her mind for months. Here's the moment everything quietly changes. She starts building a life in her head where you aren't necessary. Not dramatic fantasies, small ones. A weekend where she doesn't feel lonely next to you. A night where she doesn't have to explain why she's hurt. A morning where she doesn't have to tiptoe around your mood. And the scary part is she feels relief in that imaginary version of her life. Relief shows up before the breakup, and relief is what makes her brave. Reason 2. Her silence was the goodbye, and you probably mistook it for peace. Silence is what happens when she believes talking won't change anything. She stopped explaining because she stopped expecting you to understand. The long conversations shorten into logistics. I'll be home late. I'm tired. It's fine. The details disappear because details are intimacy, and intimacy feels pointless when you feel unheard. You might have even liked this phase. Less conflict, less tension, fewer heavy talks. The house feels calmer. But that calm isn't connection. It's distance without noise. Quietness is emotional self-protection, not harmony. She rehearsed life without you by handling pain alone, and the less she shared, the less connected she felt. And it snowballed. Here's the part nobody warns you about. Her calm tone can be closure, not maturity. When she stops reacting, she stops investing. Those arguments you hated were effort. Those tears were effort. Those uncomfortable talks were her trying to drag the relationship back into something alive. When she goes quiet, she isn't becoming easier. She's becoming finished. Reason 3. You didn't lose her that day. The final day was just the delivery, not the decision. You keep replaying the last sentence, the last look, the last moment she stood in the doorway. But she had been collecting reasons quietly while you assumed stability. Each ignored need was a small exit you didn't notice. Each broken promise taught her that your words were just sound. Each time she felt dismissed, a piece of respect broke off and never reattached. You lost her in patterns, not in one moment. The breakup only felt sudden because you weren't tracking the drift. You were tracking the routine. You were tracking whether she still slept next to you, whether she still answered your texts, whether she still said love you out of habit. Meanwhile, she was pulling herself away in increments. Less touch, less curiosity, less joy in your presence. By the time she spoke up, she was already emotionally finished. Here's a brutal detail. Your last-minute effort can't compete with months of disappointment. When you finally feel her slipping, you show up with intensity. Dates, affection, big apologies, promises with a serious tone. And it feels sincere to you because you're awake now. But to her, it often feels late. It feels like you needed the threat of loss to become present. And once she tastes that truth, she can't untaste it. Reason 4. She stopped arguing because she stopped caring, and that's why it looked so civil. Arguing is effort. It's messy, but it means she still believes you might meet her. When she stops, she's conserving energy for herself. She realized conflict wasn't fixing anything, it was only draining her. Calmness is often resignation, not acceptance. You'll notice it in how she talks. She becomes polite. She chooses careful words. She stops trying to win. She doesn't even need to be right anymore because she doesn't need the outcome anymore. She isn't speaking to you like a partner she's building with. She's speaking to you like someone she's trying to exit without more emotional work. Here's the moment everything quietly shifts again. She stops correcting you, and she starts replacing you mentally. Not always with another man. Sometimes with peace. Sometimes with solitude. Sometimes with a life that doesn't require her to fight to be valued. No fights doesn't mean no problems. It can mean no hope. Reason 5. The respect was gone first, and once respect leaves, leaving becomes inevitable. Respect dies when she feels unheard, dismissed, or taken for granted. It dies when she has to repeat herself to be taken seriously. It dies when your apologies don't come with change. Once respect fades, desire turns into duty. She starts seeing your behavior as character, not a phase. The same things she used to excuse become the things she labels you with. Broken promises teach her that your words are just noise. She stops admiring you, so intimacy becomes mechanical. She becomes independent because depending on you feels risky. Without respect, she begins looking at you like a burden to manage. And nobody stays in love with a burden. Here's the sign that should haunt you. She stops asking for what she needs because she stops believing you'll deliver it. She stops leaning on you. She stops including you. She starts doing life alone while still technically with you. To you, it looks like she's fine. To her, it's preparation. Reason 6. She grieved while you stayed comfortable. And that's why her calm feels like ice. She mourned the relationship while still living inside it. You thought routine meant safety. She felt routine as loneliness. She processed pain alone because sharing it became pointless. She accepted the ending privately, so she didn't need drama later. Her emotions burned out before the breakup conversation even happened. That's why when you finally panic, she looks almost tired. Not angry. Not even sad the way you expect. Just tired. Because you're entering grief now, but she already lived it. She didn't move on fast. She moved on early. While you were still comfortable. While you were still assuming she would keep trying. Here's the moment that breaks a man. Realizing that the version of her you're begging for at the end is a version she already buried. You're trying to resurrect warmth with urgency, but urgency isn't warmth. Urgency is fear. And she can hear fear in your voice even when your words sound loving. Here's another detail men miss. She often becomes easier right before she leaves. Not sweeter because she's happy, easier because she's detached. She laughs at things that used to bother her. She stops correcting you. She stops arguing. She stops demanding. And you feel relief, like you finally fixed it. But what you fixed is her hope. You didn't repair the bond. You watched her release it. And when the actual breakup comes, it can feel like she's reading a script. She picks a calm time. She speaks slowly. She doesn't attack you. She doesn't list everything you did wrong because she already listed it to herself 100 times. She might even apologize for hurting you while still refusing to stay. That's not coldness. That's finality. That's the sound of a decision that has already been lived through. Reason 7. Peace beat the relationship, and that's why she didn't fight for you in the end. Not the romantic peace you post about. The cold peace of not begging. The peace of not explaining the same pain in different words. The peace of not having to watch you wake up only when the consequences are loud. When a relationship becomes a place where she constantly feels unseen, Peace becomes more attractive than working on it. And once she chooses that peace, she stops fearing the breakup more than she fears staying. That's why she can let you go without a fight. The fight was the thing that was killing her, so she stops fighting. Here's what makes it feel personal. Her closure didn't need you. Men want a final conversation that makes the ending clean, where she admits everything, where you get to walk away feeling like you mattered. But when she's been grieving in silence, closure is what happens when she accepts you may never fully get it. She had the conversation with herself in the shower, in the car, lying next to you while you slept. So when you try to talk it out at the end, it feels like your words are bouncing off a wall. Here's the moment you should have been scared. When she stopped asking you to show up. Not the day she left, the day she stopped checking on you, stopped questioning you, stopped trying to make you understand. When a woman still cares, she'll risk being annoying. She'll risk being emotional. She'll risk being the problem. When she stops risking that, it means she's done paying for closeness with her dignity. You can hear it in her phrases. Do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. I'm fine. Those aren't peaceful words. Those are the words of someone who has stopped expecting. And once expectation dies, the relationship becomes a waiting room. She's still sitting next to you, but she's already rehearsing the walkout. Here's another detail men miss. She often becomes easier right before she leaves. Not sweeter because she's happy, easier because she's detached. She laughs at things that used to bother her. She stops correcting you. She stops arguing. She stops demanding. And you feel relief, like you finally fixed it. But what you fixed is her hope. You didn't repair the bond. You watched her release it. And when the actual breakup comes, it can feel like she's reading a script. She picks a calm time. She speaks slowly. She doesn't attack you. She doesn't list everything you did wrong because she already listed it to herself 100 times. She might even apologize for hurting you while still refusing to stay. That's not coldness. That's finality. That's the sound of a decision that has already been lived through. That's why there's no fight. Fighting would mean reopening a door she finally closed. Fighting would mean risking the peace she chose over the relationship. So she keeps it clean. She lets you feel the shock alone. And if you're honest, what hurts is not only losing her, it's realizing she can lose you without shaking. Now, up to this point, it's easy to turn her calm into a story where she's cold and you're the victim. That story feels good because it sedates the guilt. It lets you avoid the uglier question. Why did you feel safe while she was quietly dying inside the relationship? And it gets worse after she leaves, because your ego starts craving proof that you mattered. You want her to be angry, to be emotional, to be messy, because mess would mean she's still attached. You want the fight she refused, because a fight would mean there's still something to win back. And that craving will push you toward the same humiliating moves. Long texts, late-night calls, one last conversation. Anything that makes her react so you can breathe for a second. Here's the inward flip, and it's simple enough to hurt. Her silence felt like relief to you. No conflict meant you could relax. No complaints meant you could stop paying attention. Her calm gave you permission to coast. And coasting feels good. Right until the day you realize you've been coasting on her patience. You didn't miss the signs because you're evil. You missed them because you were comfortable. You treated her warnings like noise. You treated her needs like criticism. You defended, explained, promised, then went back to your routine. And routine is how love gets starved without anyone noticing. So when she finally leaves without a fight, it isn't because she's heartless. It's because she already learned something about you that you still haven't learned about yourself. You respond to emergencies, not to quiet needs. You wake up when the house is on fire, not when the smoke first appears. And if you don't face that, you'll repeat it. Different woman, same drift, same silence, same shock. Because you'll keep mistaking peace for distance and routine for connection, until the day you look up and realize she's already gone. Her closure didn't need you. That's why your apologies feel like they land on nothing. That's why your promises feel like they bounce off. Because you're talking to a woman who already finished the conversation months ago. So the question isn't, how do I get her back? The question is, why am I only present when I'm scared? Because that fear is what's going to make you do something humiliating next. Beg, bargain, explain, chase the fight she refused. And if you do that, you won't just lose her. You'll lose the last piece of dignity you have left, and you'll prove in real time that you still don't understand what it means when a woman lets you go without a fight. Because when you chase her calm, you are really chasing your own comfort. And that's where the final descent begins. Where you finally see that the man she left wasn't the man you thought you were, and the man she left is the man who kept showing up too late. Here's the cruel part. You think the ending happened when she said the words, but the ending happened every time she reached for you and you treated it like an inconvenience. Every time she tried to explain and you turned it into defense. Every time she asked for something small and you called it too much. She learned that closeness with you had a price she didn't want to keep paying. So when she finally leaves without a fight, she's not being cold, she's being economical. She's refusing to spend another ounce of emotional energy on a man who only becomes present when the consequence is loud. Reason 8. Your urge to chase the fight is really your ego trying to reclaim control. You call it closure. You call it one last talk. But what you want is a reaction. You want her to cry. You want her to argue. You want her to miss you in front of you because her calm makes you feel replaceable. Her calm makes you feel like you were never special. And that feeling is unbearable for a man who tied his identity to being wanted. So you start doing the things that don't work. You send paragraphs. You apologize in circles. You bring up memories like they're evidence. You say, after everything, like it's a chain. You ask questions you don't actually want answers to. Was I that bad? Did you ever love me? You're not asking to understand. You're asking to feel power again. But here's the problem. If she's already calm, she's already past persuasion. You're not negotiating with an emotional woman. You're negotiating with a decision. And decisions don't argue back. They just stand there. Reason 9. The more you chase, the more she gets colder. Because cold is how she protects the peace she chose. She doesn't want to reopen the door. She doesn't want to go back into the cycle. She doesn't want to soothe you the way she used to. She already spent her emotional budget, and she doesn't want to spend more on an ending that's already finished in her mind. So she becomes short, distant, formal. Not to punish you, to keep you from pulling her back into the role she escaped. If you keep pressing, you'll watch her become harsher than you ever saw her in the relationship. That's what shocks men. She was never like this. She wasn't, because she was still hoping then. Now she's defending her freedom, and that's why your late intensity lands wrong. Flowers feel like guilt. Dates feel like bargaining. Tears feel like manipulation, even if they're real, because the timing makes it look like damage control. She sees last-minute change as proof you could have done it before. And if you could have done it before, then she had to suffer to get it. She doesn't want a love that requires suffering as a trigger. Reason 10. Peace beat the relationship because peace feels cleaner than hope that keeps humiliating you. She got tired of being the one who tries. She got tired of feeling alone while you were right there. She got tired of explaining herself to a man who only listened when he was afraid. So she chose calm over chaos. Not because she hates you, because she wanted to survive herself. And when she finally lets go, she often feels relief first. That's the part that breaks your ego. You want her to collapse. You want her to look devastated. You want proof that she's losing something. But relief means she's been carrying weight for too long. Relief means leaving is lighter than staying. Relief means she had already grieved while you were still comfortable. You can't compete with relief. You can't romance her out of it. You can't guilt her out of it. You can only respect it. Because if you try to pull her back into misery so you can feel better, you reveal the darkest truth. You're not fighting for love. You're fighting for your comfort. Now here's the move most men avoid because it feels like accepting defeat. You go quiet. Clean quiet. Not the "I'm going to show her" quiet. Not the manipulative quiet that waits for her to reach out. Real quiet. The quiet that says, "I understand this is over, and I'm not going to beg you to reopen it." That's not weakness. That's dignity. That's you refusing to turn yourself into a man who chases someone who already chose peace. That's you refusing to force a fight just to feel like you still matter. Because if you keep chasing a woman who let you go without a fight, you're training yourself to accept something ugly. That your love is a currency you throw at people who don't want to pay you back. You're training yourself to be the man who begs, the man who negotiates, the man who collapses when he's not chosen. And that man will be walked away from again because he's too easy to leave. Here's the coldest layer. When she let you go without a fight, she was also telling you something about your place in her life. You were no longer a future. You were no longer a priority. You were no longer a man she felt safe building with. You became a lesson, a chapter, something she outgrew. That doesn't mean you're worthless. It means you were living in a way that made her feel lonely. Or you were living in a way that made her feel like she had to carry the relationship. Or she was never fully invested and you were attached to the idea more than the reality. Either way, the ending is the same. Her calm is final. And you need to hear this. You don't get closure from her. Closure is what you create by how you handle the ending. Closure is you refusing to send the message you'll regret. Closure is you refusing to stalk her life for proof. Closure is you letting the silence be the silence without turning it into a performance. Because the man who chases after being released is the man who proves why he was released. He proves he needs her to regulate him. He proves he can't stand in loss with self-respect. He proves he needs her reaction more than he needs his dignity. So let the ending teach you the right thing. If she stopped fighting, it means she stopped believing in your response. So become the man who responds early, not with panic, with presence. Become the man who listens before the threat. The man who keeps his word without being pushed. The man who takes quiet needs seriously. The man who doesn't coast on patience. Because the version of you that is perfect during the breakup is not the version she needed. She needed the version of you that shows up when things are still okay. She needed consistent care, not emergency repair. And if you can't give that to her now, give it to the next woman. Or better, give it to yourself first. Build a life where you don't need a woman's reaction to feel stable. Build a life where you don't confuse routine with connection. Build a life where you don't ignore smoke until the house is on fire. Here's the final cold realization. If she let you go without a fight, she fought alone for a long time. She fought her hope. She fought her attachment. She fought the part of herself that wanted to stay. And when she finally stopped, she wasn't being cruel. She was being done. So don't beg her to reopen a wound she finally closed. Don't chase her calm. Don't demand a fight she refused. Let her walk, and handle it like a man who doesn't lose himself in loss. If this made you see something you were avoiding, you already know what to do.